It was an ordinary Tuesday evening in Los Angeles, with the rhythmic clatter of the metro echoing through the tunnels. The city hummed as people moved about their daily grind, some lost in thought, others staring blankly at their phones. Among the passengers that day was Elon Musk, a figure most wouldn't expect to see on public transport. Known for his eccentricity and larger-than-life projects, it was peculiar to imagine the man behind Tesla and SpaceX sitting quietly in a metro car. Yet there he was, wearing an unassuming hoodie and jeans, seemingly blending into the crowd while scrolling through something on his phone. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. The quiet chaos of the metro carried on as usual, but Musk's attention was suddenly diverted by a sight that didn't quite fit. In the middle of the car, a small girl, no older than 4, sat by herself. She had a mop of unruly curls and clutched a battered stuffed animal that looked like it had been through several lifetimes of adventures. Her sneakers dangled just above the floor, and her wide eyes darted around, not in fear, but in a kind of curious observation, as if she was a visitor in a foreign world. Musk wasn't the kind of person to ignore something unusual, and this was no exception. He looked around, scanning the car for any sign of an accompanying adult, but there was none. The passengers nearby seemed equally perplexed, some exchanging glances, others whispering among themselves. It was clear this wasn't a case of a distracted parent stepping away for a moment. The girl was truly alone. Elon, being Elon, didn't approach the situation with the subtlety one might expect. He stood up, his towering frame making his movement impossible to miss, and crossed the aisle to crouch down in front of the child. There was something almost comedic about seeing one of the world's most recognizable figures trying to engage a toddler in conversation. He tilted his head, probably calculating the best way to ask her where her guardian was without scaring her off. "Hey there," he said, his voice softer than usual but still carrying that unmistakable cadence that could make even the most mundane sentence sound like the start of a groundbreaking announcement. The girl blinked at him, her tiny hands clutching the stuffed animal tighter. "What's your name?" he asked, trying again. She didn't answer, just stared at him with the kind of expression kids reserve for adults they find confusing. It wasn't fear. It was more like she was sizing him up, as if deciding whether he was worthy of her trust. Musk, undeterred, tried another approach. "That's a cool bear," he said, nodding toward her toy. "Does he have a name?" Finally, a spark of recognition lit her eyes. "Teddy," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the metro. "Teddy's a solid name," Musk replied, nodding solemnly as though she just shared an important scientific breakthrough. The exchange might have seemed trivial to an onlooker, but it was enough to break the ice. The girl's grip on her stuffed animal loosened slightly, and she relaxed just enough for Musk to sit down on the bench beside her. From there, he began piecing together the situation in his own unconventional way. The girl, it turned out, wasn't much of a talker, but her limited answers suggested she had been separated from her caregiver. She mentioned a Nana and pointed to the metro map on the wall, which Musk interpreted as her trying to indicate where she was supposed to go. It was a puzzle, and if there was one thing Elon Musk loved, it was solving puzzles, whether they involved reusable rockets or apparently a lost child on public transit. Instead of alerting the metro authorities right away, Musk did what he always does when faced with a challenge. He improvised. Pulling out his phone, he opened a note-taking app and began listing potential stations based on her vague gestures and muttered words. The sight of him, a tech billionaire hunched over his phone taking notes like a school kid cramming for a test, was surreal enough to draw a few chuckles from nearby passengers. The metro made a stop, and Musk looked up, glancing at the signs before turning back to the girl. "Does this look familiar?" he asked, his tone somewhere between hopeful and analytical. She shook her head. This back and forth continued for several stops, with Musk growing increasingly invested in the task. He started pacing the car during stops, scanning for anyone who might recognize the child or any sign that they were on the right track. The scene had an almost comedic rhythm to it, with Musk darting between his phone, the girl, and the metro doors like a man on a mission, which in fairness he was. Despite the absurdity of the situation, there was an undeniable sincerity in his actions. Musk, known for his larger-than-life personality and sometimes divisive public image, was entirely focused on the child. There was no fanfare, no cameras, no grandiose statements, just a man trying to help a little girl get back to her family. After what felt like an eternity but was probably closer to 20 minutes, the girl finally perked up. "There!" she exclaimed, pointing out the window as the train pulled into a station. Musk didn't hesitate. He took her hand, carefully as though she were made of glass, and led her off the train. The station was bustling, but it didn't take long for Musk to spot an older woman frantically scanning the crowd. The girl let out a delighted cry of "Nana" and ran toward her, leaving Musk standing there, watching as the two were reunited. The woman's face was a mix of relief and tears, and though it was impossible to hear their exchange over the noise of the station, the gratitude was evident. Musk, never one to linger in the spotlight, gave a small nod and started to turn back toward the train. But before he could leave, the woman approached him, clutching the girl's hand tightly. She said something to him, likely a thank you, and Musk responded with a brief wave and one of his characteristic half-smiles, the kind that always seemed to carry a hint of mischief. As the train doors closed behind him, Musk returned to his seat, his face unreadable as he resumed scrolling through his phone. The moment had passed, and the metro car returned to its usual hum of quiet activity. But for those who witnessed the scene, it was a reminder that even the most extraordinary individuals are capable of simple, profound acts of kindness. The implications of that moment stretched far beyond the confines of the metro. For Musk, it was a rare glimpse of his human side, a reminder that beneath the larger-than-life persona was someone willing to stop and help a stranger. For everyone else, it was a testament to the power of paying attention, of noticing when something isn't quite right and choosing to act. It didn't take a multi-billion-dollar company or an ambitious vision for the future. It took a single decision, a willingness to step in and make a difference, however small. The story of Elon Musk and the girl on the metro became an instant legend, passed around not because of his fame, but because of its simplicity. It wasn't about technology or innovation. It was about humanity, about the things that connect us all. And in a world increasingly driven by distraction, it was a moment that stood out, a quiet, unassuming act that spoke louder than words ever could. As the train sped onward, the passengers who had witnessed the event remained unusually quiet, as though still processing what they had just seen. A few exchanged knowing glances, perhaps mentally recounting the story they would tell their friends later. For Musk, however, the episode seemed to fade almost as quickly as it had occurred. He leaned back in his seat, his phone in hand again, this time seemingly engrossed in a new task, possibly jotting down an idea or responding to a message. If there was one thing consistent about him, it was his ability to pivot seamlessly between moments, big or small. The metro car rattled on, and the city outside blurred past, but the subtle weight of the moment lingered in the air. Musk didn't look up as the train approached his stop, but when he stood, his demeanor was calm, purposeful. The metro doors slid open, and he stepped off into the flow of the crowd, his figure disappearing into the cityscape like a fleeting thought. That little girl might never fully grasp the gravity of who helped her, but for everyone else on that train, the memory stood out as a reminder. Even the most extraordinary lives are shaped by ordinary, meaningful moments. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.